I'm Sherri. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Quilts and Other Happy Accidents. Um, I started thinking about this YouTube channel when I, in fact, had my very own accident. I'm a cyclist, and I was out one day cycling, and I met a rock, and the rock won. And I ended up damaging, actually breaking a bone in the back of my knee and doing some ligament damage. And so for about 4.5 or 5 weeks, I was sitting in my easy chair with my leg up and ice on my leg. And it didn't take very long for that to get very old. And so I started watching YouTube videos about quilting and other things. But it did help me pass the time, and I did realize that there's a lot of good information out there. And I started watching some different ideas, and I'm a very busy person. I don't sit still well. So you can imagine me on crutches trying to just get through the day without going insane. So I started watching some videos, and I came across Karen at Just Get It Done Quilts because I was thinking about maybe doing some quilt-as-you-go things. And she came up with this stitch and flip kind of idea to make a braid, which I've never made a braid, and I thought that would be kind of fun to do, and I could use my scraps. And I also got to thinking about my friend Claire. Claire had asked me to make her a lap quilt, and I've made them for her in the past and enjoyed doing things for friends like that. So, but I couldn't really decide what I wanted to do for Claire. I had gotten out even some of my orphan blocks, thinking about maybe I could just make a nice orphan block quilt, put them together in a way that kind of made sense. But after the accident, I also realized I can't sit in this easy chair forever. So I rearranged my sewing room. I came in here and I put everything in kind of a U. So over here is my cutting mat, obviously, and my iron. That little ironing pad worked out really well. And then my sewing machine is here in front, right next to where the computer's sitting now. And off to the right, I have my good old-fashioned ironing board, and I started sorting scraps. And I just decided to put the strips, and we've all got so many scraps, so many strips. But I decided to put the strips in color families and just see what I had. So that took some time, probably several days, actually. And then I got to thinking, okay, if I can sit and cut and sew and press, I can make a quilt. So again, here comes Claire. So on Karen's channel, I downloaded this because I've been making a lot of donation quilts also. And the organization that I make the donation quilts for require them to be a twin size, which is not small. But I discovered that as I was making these braids, they were getting kind of too long for me to manage easily while I'm sitting. But when they got to, say, 36, 38 inches, I decided to let them stop there. And I don't know if you've had this experience or not, but sometimes when I'm starting a new quilt block, even though I'm following the instructions, it seems like I have to make it wrong a couple of times before I finally kind of get into the flow and get the block going. Well, that happened with the braid also. So this braid, I was challenged to try and keep these points lined up and going straight. And at some point, I trimmed one side shorter than the other side, so it was not symmetric at all. I had to trim it way down. But it's like, that's okay. I'll put it in another quilt someday. It'll find a home. They always do, right? So I started thinking about Claire and making these braids. And I finally got it to where I thought it would work. And I had now been on crutches healing for about 4 weeks. And it was time to start getting a little more active, which is good. So now I'm able to stand a little bit. I'm able to do some cutting and things like that. And I was able to put Claire's quilt together. I'm going to show you that. We're going to pause right here and put in some. I really like this quilt. Claire loves purple. That is her main color. If you put it in purple, she's going to love it. And I really like the way this came together. If you look at these braids, you can see that they're varied in width. So I've got some that are pretty wide, and I've got some that are quite narrow. I was able to use such a wide variety of fabric that it really just has a lot of energy and a lot of motion. And then when I put it together so that the braids were alternating in direction, I got this beautiful chevron shape. Can you see how lovely that turned out? Let's get the camera a little closer. What a crazy collection of fabrics. Well, we've all got those collections. So by now, I've been healing long enough that I'm getting a little more mobile. I'm not having to use my crutches all the time, so I'm getting some strength back. I'm back in physical therapy. And I'm starting to think about how am I going to quilt this, because I've always quilted with my machine, maybe stitch in the ditch. I've got a larger machine that I do some free motion quilting on. But it was like, yeah, but what am I going to do that does this quilt justice? But I'm also healing and starting to get out more. And my husband and I decided to get our little camper out, 21-foot camper. And really, at this point, I can go camping, but I still have to sit. I can't hike. I can't do some of the other things. Still not on the bike. Another story for another day. So then I started watching YouTube videos about hand quilting, because my idea of quilting, hand quilting, involved a hoop and a stand and a room full of equipment. Well, then I started watching people on YouTube. Thank you, by the way, for putting these videos out. Nikki at Pin Cut Sew. She did a great video about how she hand quilts and why she hand quilts and all of those things. She also has some great patterns. The Wonky House, I really liked that one. And then I stumbled across Rachel at Stitch with Rachel, and she did a video entitled Hand Quilting Without a Hoop on My Lap. Mind blown, because if I can quilt on my lap, I can take it camping, and I did. So I learned some really good things from the videos that I saw and the people that put them together. Thank you all. And I also learned I actually kind of like hand quilting. So if you can see this quilt, you can see some of the hand quilting I've done here. And what I did was I just followed these chevrons and I did a stitch in the ditch and then connected it to the next one. Well, they're also different widths. So even my quilting has different widths involved, because I kind of tried to keep it going with the chevron pattern that I had. And it worked out beautifully. I chose to quilt it with a nice dark purple because it blends very well, and even the stitch in the ditch, you can't see the purple on it. But then I want to show you the back, because there's more purple on the back, and some of the stitching shows and some of it disappears. So, all right. As with all new skills, there is definitely a learning curve. But I wanted to pay particular attention to show you how this looks on the back. And then once it goes into this black fabric, it essentially disappears. And that works well. So Claire not only likes purple, but she also loves animals. And so I think these neon cats on the back are going to appeal to her. So she's actually going to have a two-sided quilt here that I think she'll really enjoy. So why do I call my channel Quilts and Other Happy Accidents? Well, the fact that I'm even a quilter is an accident, and that's probably another story for another day. But if you think about it, when I had my bicycle accident and broke my knee, it turned out to open a whole new world for me. If I hadn't hurt my knee, I never would have started watching YouTube videos. If I hadn't started watching YouTube videos, I wouldn't have learned how to make the braid. I wouldn't have started hand quilting. I wouldn't have really grown to appreciate all of the wonderful, talented people that are making YouTube videos out there. You know, quilters are really generous people. They're always willing to share their craft. And so I'm really appreciative of those that are sharing their craft online. The other thing is, quilters are truly artists. Um, they create things. And just as I've created this quilt that is unlike anything I've ever done before, it gave me the opportunity to create something out of nothing. Scraps. Everything in this quilt was in the stash and was just scraps. It gave me the opportunity to express myself. I tend to buy fabric randomly. I don't buy a lot of kits. I just buy fabric I like, and someday it all gets put together. And so that's art in a lot of ways. Now, is this quilt perfect? Oh, gosh, no. None of my quilts are perfect, but I don't do it for the perfection. I do it for the joy of the creative process. I do it because fabric just fascinates me, how it can start one way and end up another way. I do it because the people I give my quilts to, I think they have a sense of the energy and the time and the love that I put into the quilt. And that's why I do it. I don't, you'll never see one of my quilts at a big quilt show. It just isn't ever going to happen. But if you enjoy quilting and if you've enjoyed this video, I thank you for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. You know how that all works. And I'll bring you back with my next adventure because I've already started thinking about it. And hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. Have a wonderful day.